Welcome to the Daily Huddle on our Money Monday. We're excited about this day and where we're headed. We like to start out with a little lighthearted humor. So for those of you that are visiting us for the first time, I hope this comes across the way it did when I read it the first time, because I could internalize this myself. But it says, "My dad is so cheap that when he passes away, he's going to walk toward the light and turn it off."
You like his cheesy dad joke, right? Cheesy dad money joke.
Everybody goes to hell because of my dad. They can't see the light to go to it.
Right? Turns it off.
Gotta get every penny saved we can save, right? Walk behind you into a room and turn the light off right behind you. Not even give you a chance to do it yourself. So.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Huddle today on Money Monday. I'm Kimberly and my husband, Zack. We're co-hosts here. So we are super excited that you showed up today, and we're happy to see your faces and see all of you guys on Facebook also. Our question of the day today is a big one, right? It's one that is highly emotional and highly debated. So the question of the day today is, should I pay off my mortgage? So as we go forward and as we have these conversations, that's what we're talking about today. So it should be fun, should create a lot of conversation, a lot of thoughts, hopefully is our goal for you. But before we get started, I have a question for you. Do you want this question?
No, I was just going to give you some little backdrop.
Oh,
You can ask whoever you
well,
want.
why don't I ask you?
Okay.
What time is it, Zack? And what are you grateful for? So you have to use your words.
The time is now, right? It's always now. What we do right now.
And what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for my children and their happiness. They all appear to be in good places at the moment. So I'm very grateful for that.
I'm grateful for your children's happiness too. Considering, right? They're mine as well. I think the now clock is awesome, right? Because it's definitely now all of the time. So having that in our office as a daily reminder is pretty awesome. Andrea, where are you and who will you hug today?
I am where I say I am, and I am here in the present, right here with you guys. And I'm going to actually hug myself today.
Awesome. Self-love today on Monday,
Yep.
right?
It's going to be just like that.
Well, great. Give yourself a big hug and thanks for joining us today and welcome. Chase, how are you?
I am as I say I am.
Sometimes I have to think about that one too. I'm like, how am I? But you're absolutely correct. You are exactly how you say you are. We work on that with our kids all of the time, is, that positive affirmation and talking about how you actually want to be. And a lot of times that creates how you are. So thank you for joining us today. Zack, I'm going to let you get started. Remember, our question of the day is, should I pay off my mortgage? And as I said before, that's a very heated topic and a very emotional conversation. Just to give you guys a little background, most of you know, but Zack and I are obviously married, and we've been in the financial services industry for 20 years now. I have to think about McKenna and her age, right? For 20 years now. But we also have been in the mortgage industry for that long as well. So I think it's really interesting to know that we combine both of those worlds with mortgages and financial planning and really look at it as a holistic concept. So just to give you a little background and conversation on who we are and our thoughts that have been shaped really by helping people with their financial plans over the last 20 years, including their mortgages. So, Zacko?
Yeah, I want to take that question a step farther and not really, it's somewhat rhetorical because I'm going to give you the answer even if you don't know it, but what is opportunity cost? And I think that's what we have to think about in our daily life. We talk a lot about, and we've talked about on the Daily Huddle, recognizing opportunities and then taking advantage of those opportunities. Well, the opportunity cost by definition is the cost missed or the gain missed by making one choice over another one. And so when we look at opportunity cost, I want to give you a real life example that's not real life for a lot of us because the numbers are so huge.
But I think
But
everybody has maybe not that big, but a similar opportunity
Sure.
that they can think back on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big sports fan, coach, all that kind of stuff. And some of you guys may be aware of who John Elway is. And he has a story that recently he's done well and he's not been in a lot of financial pain. Don't get me wrong. But recently he had an opportunity cost realized that he could actually see the real numbers. Back in 1998, Pat Bowlen, who was the owner of the Denver Broncos at that point in time, offered John Elway 10% ownership in the franchise in exchange for the $21 million that the franchise owed him at that time. And that was right after they just won their first Super Bowl and so on and so forth. He also offered him the opportunity to purchase another 10% of the franchise for $15 million. So we're talking about a $36 million transaction in 1998, 21 of which he didn't have to pay. He just had in exchange for, right? So $36 million in 1998, he said, you know what? I don't think I want to do that. I want you to pay me the $21 million. And I just want to keep earning my money and doing what I'm doing here and doing my job as the quarterback and so on and so forth. Well, if you follow that story forward, the NFL owners unanimously approved the sale of the Denver Broncos this year for $4.65 billion with a B. So that $36 million that John Elway had an opportunity to invest at that point in time would be $930 million today. That's a lot of rate of return that was missed on that opportunity. So there were a couple things there. You had to have the ability financially to take advantage of that opportunity, right, at that point, or any opportunity that we might see out there while we're going through our day-to-day process. We probably all see a lot of opportunities and we say, you know what, if I had the money, I might do that. If I had the money, I might do that. But we all have, if you're a homeowner and you're considering struggling with this question that Kimberly's mentioned already, this is a big opportunity cost and a big opportunity that a lot of homeowners just make the wrong decision. Now, I'll turn it over to her to talk about the details of how and why that works. But I want everybody to understand that opportunity cost is the cost you pay for not being aware of your decisions or for not making the right decision, if you will. So, Kimberly, I'll give that back to you.
So I think it's important to remember, we talked a few weeks ago about debt, right? And getting out of debt and paying off, our debt. But we also talked about good debt and bad debt. Bad debt is anything that's a depreciating asset or a credit card or something like that, right? Good debt is okay as long as we're buying something with the hope and the goal of that appreciation. It's okay to leverage it. It's okay to have good debt. So I think it's important to understand, first of all, the differences between both. And Zack talking about opportunity cost, most people, if you ask them, and we've sat down with them through the years, what are your goals, right? If I could wave a magic wand, tomorrow looks exactly like you want it to look like. What is that? What does your future look like if you can design it, right? Write it on a piece of paper. And for everyone, 90-something%, like the very, very top, most people say get out of debt as one of their top pieces, and they include their mortgage, right? They include getting out of debt because that's their freedom to them. But I want to talk to you guys about that opportunity cost that Zach's mentioning to you as well. Because in order for most people to get out of debt, they have to take a significant amount of monthly income, right? And they have to put it into their mortgage to get out of debt. Well, doing so obviously limits the amount of money that if an opportunity to buy the Denver Broncos, just kidding, most of us can't buy Denver Broncos. But if an opportunity came up, then you don't have the ability to make those different decisions. So I guess the way I want to start is to talk about money is emotional for everyone, right? When we were born, we were told to go out and go to school and go to college and get a job and have this pension that's we're going to retire on one day and get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage and pay that mortgage and just pay that. And when we retire in 30 years, our mortgage is paid off, our pension is there, and our world is rosy, right? That's where the emotion of paying off our mortgage comes from for so many people, because it's what our grandparents did. It's what our grandparents taught our parents to do. It's what our parents are teaching us to do. But really, we need to take the emotion out of money, and we need to realize that it's just math, and we need to look at it on paper, and we need to say what makes mathematical sense. So should you pay off your mortgage? I'm going to actually, if you'll let me share my screen, please. Should you pay off your mortgage? The question is always, or the answer is always, in any question that you ask, it depends, right? It depends. It's always going to depend on your personal situation, your personal financial, situation. So to actually answer that question for you specifically, we'd have to sit down and have that conversation with you. But I want to just show you guys some ideas. My goal here is to make you think, right? It's to make you think, to make you understand what your options are. Maybe I can, there we go. And how does it actually work? So I hope it makes sense and you can kind of jump in and clarify just in case it doesn't. But should I pay off my mortgage? Right? That for most people, it's their biggest asset and it's also their biggest liability. So where should my focus be, and should I pay off my mortgage? First of all, I think it's important to talk about what is equity. Most of us know, but some of us don't. So it's simply the difference between the value of your house and what you owe. And that difference is your equity, right? That's the amount that you would have at the end of the day. That goes kind of on your balance sheet, right? I wink with you and say that. But the other question is, what is the rate of return of equity? Does equity have any actual rate of return? And is it a good investment? So if we look at these two different houses, first of all, equity has a 0% rate of return. If I have $500,000 and I put it in the walls of my house, like this first example, and I owe nothing, my house is still worth $500,000. If I have $500,000 and I take $100,000 of it and I put it in the walls of this house, right, and I owe $400,000, my value is still the same. Therefore, regardless of how much I owe on my mortgage or how much it's paid off, the value that my house is going to rise and fall with the real estate market, regardless of how much I owe, right? Always. Do you want to say anything there? Or do you want me to just keep
Well, no, I mean, I think that there are a lot of things, especially in this time frame that we're in right now in a rising interest rate market, where there are a lot of people that had an opportunity a year or 2 years ago to refinance their home and they didn't. And now they have a lot of money sitting in their house, and it's they can't get it out for less than 7%. And that does have a big cost associated with it. So, and again, remember, we're talking conceptually. We're not giving blanket advice. We're talking conceptually about decisions that people make in their financial life. And that's one of the things that we guide people through, but also the education part of just understanding exactly what these moving parts are in this type of transaction. I think the fact that your home's value rises and falls at the same rate, regardless of what you owe, is very important for people to understand. Very important. So I think that's what I'd say.
And the other thing that I want you guys to realize is equity is literally just a number on your balance sheet that doesn't have any actual value until you convert it to cash. So how do you convert it to cash? How can you access your equity? There are only two ways, right? If I have $500,000 and I buy this house free and clear, and I have a hiccup tomorrow, or I need it tomorrow, or I'm going to buy the Denver Broncos tomorrow, right? I've got this opportunity and I want to get that money back out of my house because it's my money, right? I gave it to the bank. It's my money. I want it back because I have, other things that I want to do with it now. How do I get my money out of my house? There are only two ways, right? I either have to sell it or I have to refinance it. And both of those come with their own risks, right? To sell it, we have to be in a market that dictates the value of our house, how quickly it's going to sell. Somebody's got to actually want it. And there could be some lag time. It could be perfect. Last couple of years, been pretty great time to sell a house, right? 2008, probably wasn't a great time to sell a house. So we have to understand that is a risk to our investment. That is a risk to our money. But also to refinance it, let's say you don't want to sell your house. Let's say that you want to reach in and access that money that you just gave the bank, right? Because you paid it all down. Now you want it back. Well, you have to be worthy. How's your credit? Is your credit good enough for the bank to say, yes, you can have your money back? I don't know. Do you still have a job? How's your debt to income ratio? So you have to qualify, right? You have to be worthy to get your money back. So putting all of your money, for most people, that would be obviously their biggest asset. Like I said before, putting all of your money into the walls of your house, into an illiquid asset, it doesn't make sense. Cash is king. Cash is always king. And having access to that liquid money allows you to make different opportunities. So I think for me, should I pay my house off? Obviously, like I said before, it's always going to depend, right? We're always going to say it depends. But I also think that if you, regardless of the emotion, I have some really great friends, and if they're listening, then they know exactly what I'm talking about, who have lots of properties. And we've had this conversation for, the 12 years that we've known each other about leveraging your assets, and because their goal is to buy more properties, and they don't care what I say, they're going to pay off their properties. Because that's what they want to do. And that's what makes them, warm and fuzzy. So ultimately my goal and our goal is to teach you. Our goal is to give you educational options and understanding and clarity. And then even if you want to pay off your mortgages because it feels good, great, fine, but you understand what your options are and what your choices are. So I would tell you, if that is your goal, and regardless of any research that you do, any conversation that you do, you want to pay your house off, then my next best answer is going to be fine, but don't do it first. Instead of paying extra money to your mortgage so it goes away quicker, you still own the same house, right? You guys understand that. If you buy a house today with a mortgage and you take 30 years to pay it off, you still own that house today and in 30 years, regardless of what you owe on it. So you still own that asset. But if you, instead of taking that extra money to pay off that mortgage, take that extra money and pay towards your debt. Take that extra money and make sure your emergency fund is set. Take that extra money and make sure that your retirement plan is set. Because I promise you, 30 years from now, your mortgage payment, assuming we all keep the same mortgage and we don't refinance and cash out and move, which we know most people actually, sell or refinance every 3 to 5 years anyway. But assuming that that's the case, then your mortgage payment in 30 years is probably going to be one of your lowest payments. So take that difference and invest it for yourself until your retirement is completely funded and you are absolutely confident that you can afford to live. Don't pay your house off, because you're just going to be able to sit in the walls of your house and you're still going to have all of this stuff going on around you. So lots of different conversations, lots of different ideas. Also, why don't you talk about leveraging that down payment or leveraging that equity to really grow growth or to grow your wealth? Because obviously our goal for you, our goal for everyone, is to increase their cash flow and to grow their wealth. How do we do that if we pay our houses off? Like what's an alternative?
Yeah. So, I mean, the cleanest example that I have, and it's very, it's just very straightforward. Obviously, we know there's a lot of moving parts to this, but if I have $100,000, right, and we all would love to have $100,000 just to make a choice, right? I could buy one house that's $100,000 house, and I'm going to rent, let's say, I go buy this house free and clear with my cash, and I have $700 a month coming in from rent. I have a mortgage of $500 a month. Let's say I'm just making these numbers up. Or I could take the same $100,000 and I could buy 10% down on 10 $100,000 houses, right? And then I have 10 assets growing, because remember, my asset grows with the real estate market and falls, not based on what I owe, but I've also multiplied my income spread off of that investment times 10. So now instead of a $200 a month inflow coming in after my mortgage is paid, right? I had $700 in rent, $500 in mortgage on the first house.
You didn't have a mortgage on the first house.
Oh, I didn't. That's right. So I had $700 in rent coming in on the first house. That's right. $700 cash flow. Now I have $2,000 cash flow coming in. And I have 10 assets that are growing. Now, there's a lot that goes into this about you being able to afford those kind of things and do those kind of things. So again, I'm cautious to say it's not blanket advice, it's education. We want to give you a mental paradigm shift about some of the most emotional purchases and emotional decisions that people make. One of my best friends, and we'll open this up to Q&A here in just a second. One of my best friends says all the time, in almost every conversation that we have, he says, my life motto for him is never be afraid to take a profit. Somebody else might make a little bit more money on that house if they hold it longer. But if I'm in a good spot and it works well for my financial plan, never be afraid to take a profit. There are a lot of people sitting in the crypto world right now that should have been not afraid to take a profit, right? And that's just one of the things we have to know is the entire picture, the entire plan. But we want you to understand concepts and be able to digest those personally and realize that money is math. It's not emotion. And when we get emotional about our decisions, when it comes to our finances, sometimes we make poor decisions. So I love these concepts. I like they are paradigm shifting, if you will, in the way people think. So let's have some dialogue, some questions, so we can kind of see where we go from here. Anyone?
Sorrel, you have a question?
Say a little more about leveraging the down payment and buying, say, several properties. Is that something you actually did or something you saw someone do? If someone, let's say someone's out to buy their first home.
Right.
Because I remember this clearly for me. I was out to buy my first home and I said to my wife, let's buy a duplex. We'll live on one side and we'll live on the other side. That didn't work out. My wife wanted privacy. And we went that way. And I'm thinking back and going, what if people who are buying their first home were to do something like that, leverage the down payment and begin really early to build wealth? What do you want to say about that?
I think that's a great example, right? Buying a duplex, renting out one side, allowing it to pay for the other. I think that's a huge real estate hack, right? When people are just starting out, how do you get into that game? I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday, driving back from Atlanta, and I told Zack about it. But the lady had made a fortune in real estate. She started really young, right? That was what she did, was buy her first duplex and kind of rent it out like that. But she also made a really interesting comment that I kind of stopped and I thought, oh, that's important. When we're investing in the investment world, right, taking it outside of just as a primary residence, but talking about the growth of our equity and the growth of our values and things like that, in order to be able to invest, we have to have money, right? If I want to buy $100,000 worth of stock, how much money do I have to have? $100,000 for most people, right? To buy that asset, I have to have $100,000. If I want to buy a $100,000 house, how much money do I have to get in that game to then start growing that equity and growing my wealth? It depends, right? But obviously you can do it for as little as 3% down, 3.5% down, if you qualify for those programs. I always teach people a couple of things. First of all, and these are just concepts that are coming off the top of my head, but people come to me and they want a 15-year fixed rate mortgage, and that's what they want. And so we talk about it, we have these conversations, but if I have any power at all in my conversation, I'm going to teach them to get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, pay the 15-year payment if you want to. Still going to be paid off in about the same amount of time. But if there's a problem, if there's a hiccup, you have that difference of payment, right? That you can afford to maybe not make that 15-year payment next month. You can make the 30-year payment. So lots of different concepts, lots of different thoughts like that, but absolutely leveraging a small amount down to get into that market, to allow yourself to grow and live and all of those things is yes, we've done that. We did that with our daughter last year. Our daughter lives in Columbia. She has a small house. Obviously I'm in the mortgage world, so I know kind of how that works. And I was on the mortgage with her, but we put, I think we had to put 5% down on that property, and she's got mortgage insurance, right? Mortgage insurance is not bad. So her mortgage insurance is like $65 a month, because I think the property was like, I don't know, 140,000 or something like that. But already she has enough growth to call the mortgage company and say, drop my PMI, because she owns the house.
Yeah. And it's a 2-bedroom, and her roommate covers the cost of the home. She covers the utilities, but the rent the roommate pays covers the mortgage and the mortgage insurance and all those kind of things. So, I mean, there are great tools. I mean, we did it when we were starting out. We were going to rent an office space. We had an opportunity at that point in time where there was a new construction office condominium area going on, and we bought an office. We bought 2 of them side by side, and we allowed the one that paid us rent to cover our cost. So we had the growth on those office buildings. We could either pay someone else rent or we could buy them. Now we had put ourselves in a position to be able to do that. I love working with new investors, with young people that are getting their first jobs. It excites me so much, because they're going, in a lot of cases, from being an hourly employee where they've been working in the service industry or whatever else, to having a salary, or they're getting out of college and moving in that direction. And they have more money than they've ever had before. And that's a magical moment where we can teach them the right thing to do with that. And one of those is, if you so desire to get in the real estate game, you can always rent that house if you want to live somewhere else. A lot of people think of buying a house as tying down solid roots where they're stuck and they can't go somewhere or whatever. That's not necessarily the case at all. So yes, I think that minimizing the outlay to secure the asset, and there are many other reasons that are on the negative side, or that protect you in a negative market as well. And I'll leave this out there because it kind of blows people's minds when you think about it. But in 2008, the people that thought the way that we try to educate folks not to think, right? That they
People that paid off their houses.
People that paid off their houses, and they put all their cash and everything down in their homes.
Or they owe just a little bit.
And they owed very little. The bank was in a very good position on those homes. A lot of those people lost their jobs too. And if you look at the balance sheets, the banks went after the houses that were in the best position first, and they negotiated with people that had high mortgages, because
if you're in a business, are you going to take the asset that has the equity that you can then sell and recoup your losses on the world, or are you going to take the asset that's totally leveraged? It's just
it's understanding
the game.
Understanding the field of play that you're on and what the other teams are dealing with. So but yeah,
definitely interesting world. Definitely, lots of different moving parts with that conversation, with that decision. But any other questions we have?
All right. Well, you guys give us some feedback and let us know if you have other questions. And moving forward, it should be fairly easy to reach out through this group. So let's remind ourselves as we go forward about our 8 tenets that we live by here at the Daily Huddle. Number 1, love. Number 2, laugh out loud. I hope I got a little laugh out of you at the beginning of that one. It struck me funny when I read it. So number 3, stress less. We talk about money on Mondays, and money is very stressful for a lot of people. Don't let it be. Stress less. Eat mostly plant-based. Take care of your body. Give. If you can't give money, give time, or give both. Just give. It feels so good to do. Sleep. Let your body rest. Move. When we get done here, get up and move around for a few minutes. And number 8, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Give yourself a minute, take a pause before you speak, before you do whatever, think about it. So thank you guys so much.